Hi, I'm Gary from Hydroponics in York Springs, Pennsylvania, and we also have a store in Maryland called All Good Garden Supply in Finksburg. And today we're going to be talking about feeding charts and feeding schedules, or whatever you want to call them. Don't forget to hit a little button down here too on the side here, so you can follow us. We get tons of questions in here about feeding plants, feeding schedules. I've got a problem with feeding schedules, and it's a lot of reasons why. These are great guides to get you going, but everyone's grow room is totally different. Everything you're doing is totally different. Pot size, container size, humidity, temperature, and one of the biggest ones is your lights. For instance, Fox Farm feeding schedule. Everybody comes in here saying they cut this way back. They read it online, and it's just, you can't just do things like that without thinking about your lights. I think most of these feeding companies, what should I say, test their products using 1,000-watt lights in commercial growing environments with perfect humidity, temperature, everything. If you have that at home, you can actually hit Fox Farm schedule and not kill stuff. But most people don't. And when you're reading that blog about that says cut down Fox Farm down 0.25% or it's going to kill your stuff, well, that's probably coming from a guy using like a 200-watt LED. And in that case, yes, you need to cut it down that far because that plant does not need a lot of food because it's not growing that fast. It's under a very low wattage light. So a 1,000-watt light, you need to crank the food up. And also size of plants. Some growers keep them small and, keep them small and under control. Other people are doing 8 foot tall, that all has a huge effect on your feeding guide. So, with that being said, you just need to keep that in mind. Other things you need to know when you're looking at feeding guides, and we do have these on our website, by the way, so look it up. We have all the feeding guides on there that we've been adding more and more as we find them. You want to spend special attention to recirculating versus draining the waste. This is cutting edge solutions, awesome products, and there's a difference in your feeding. With the hydroponics, they're taking into account that your nutrients can be in the reservoir for like 1 or 2 weeks, so they're usually a higher amount you're going to be putting in there. In soil, it's different. So drain the waste is soil, cocoa, etc. Recirculating means you've got a hydroponic tank that's going to be reusing the nutrient. So keep that in mind when you're looking at your schedules. Fox Farm, the same way, they got soil, and then they've got hydro. Nectar for the Gods, awesome for soil. These guys, I would definitely recommend reading the fine print. Their stuff's pretty safe to go full on a lot of things, but if you're using a very low wattage light, you just don't need to feed your plants that much. They're not going to be doing photosynthesis, they're not going to be using it up, so keep that in mind. General Hydroponics, same thing with them. You want to definitely watch out for draining the waste and recirculating because they are different. These guides, I find they're still excellent to use as a reference to get your ratios right. So if you got your regular grow and bloom and you got to add some PK booster, you can get your ratio that way. So if you're cutting your mix in half because you got a low wattage light, then you know to cut your PK booster in half also. So this gives you a good reference just to get things done the right way. And I don't think they touch about this stuff on the blogs too much. That's what bothers me so much when people come in and they talk about people cutting down their nutrients or bumping them up. The people writing this stuff don't tell you what kind of light you have. They don't really talk about your humidity or your environment, how small of an area, CO2. They don't talk about any of that. So just watch it, folks. That's all I got to say. All right, one more thing I want to talk about is the flushing, the intermittent flushing when you're in soils. If you're using salt-based nutrients, you're going to want to do this every few weeks. Pretty much, all right, say, I'm just going to give you an example of this. If I'm feeding my plants 1,000 parts per million in soil, they're eating 800 parts per million. The next week, you feed them 1,000 parts per million, they eat 800. There's this leftover 200, it's going to build up. and after a couple months, your soil could be 2 or 3,000 parts per million, and then your plant's gonna get choked out. So doing the flushes are very important for the salt-based nutrients. It's also very good just in general to flush every few weeks, just to get everything out of there and restart if you're in salts. Like Finksburg chart here, pretty much at the end of the veg cycle, this is your light timer here, 18 hours. When you flip your lights to 12 hours, they do a flush. Generally, the flush is, say you're in a 5-gallon pot, you'll run 3 times the amount of water through it. That's a lot of water. It's a pain, but it'll make the plants much happier. So you'll be running 15 gallons through that pot. Not easy to do. I've suggested all different things, but wet vacs are great. You can suck it out of the saucer as you're dumping. I also recommend immediately after the flush, or even if you're going to do the 15 gallons, do 5 gallons of flush agent, 5 gallons of water, and then the last 5 gallons put food through. That way the food's in there, because you don't want to flush and starve your plant. Because once the plant gets out of that mode, all right, sorry about that, guys. But anyway, yeah, back to the flushing. Hydro is even easier. You're going to want to, at least during flowering, every week you should change your hydro system. You're going to get a way better yield out of it than waiting every two weeks. And of course, if you're on like lettuce and stuff like that, you can go longer. So yeah, that's about all I wanted to say about the flushing. Something I wanted to touch on. There's lots of different flush recipes too. Like Nectar's got a great one. Look them up for their flush. The flushing solutions themselves help break the salts down. So using plain water, it's going to get a lot of stuff out of there, but it's not going to really break the salts down. So I'm Gary from Hydroponics in York Springs, PA. We got a store in Maryland called All Good Garden Supply, and check us out. I think the next episode is going to be CO2. So see you then.